All right. Well, welcome everyone to the October Inland SoCal Housing Collective meeting. I'm so happy everyone's here. We still got a few folks trailing in, so I'll just be admitting them as we continue. So today we have two presenters here. So we have Andrew Dawson from California Housing Partnership, who will be giving us a legislative update, kind of a final tally overview of what happened this past month that the governor signed, if you already don't know. And then following that, we'll have Jeff Green from the Inland Equity Community Land Trust. He's going to share out also a little bit about the work they're doing, their community land trust, and the work in Adelanto. So just before we get started, though, I have a few announcements that I wanted to make known. As you guys see up here on the screen, I get occasionally from time to time requests for the previous meeting or a past meeting, the recording. And as you know, we record all these meetings and we do post them. The collective has a YouTube channel and we post all our meetings. It's usually posted within 24 hours. So you can get that at your leisure. They date back to the beginning of this year. I just wanted to make that announcement to make known so you can access them. You can access them at any time, and even forward them to someone else if there's something you want them to hear or see or from a previous meeting or presentation. So next, just quick announcements I want to make. Our expansion housing solutions pillar has been working on a California mortgage relief education series. Different HUD-based, different housing counseling agencies have been hosting education workshops or counseling events. Next up is NPHS on November 11th. There's the link to sign up there. I'll also drop in the actual link for the registration in the chat too, as soon as I'm done with these announcements. But it's enough time ahead. I mean, it's in November, so we have a couple weeks. If you know anyone who's interested in learning about that, or anyone in your organization, any of your clients, or anyone in your city that wants to learn, here's the next upcoming education series for you all to promote and to share. The Inland SoCal Housing Collective, again, is partnering with the Inland Regional Energy Network. We're partnering with them to ensure that the energy codes, the updates are being rolled out, they're enforced. We're working with our developers, especially with our private or our affordable developers in the region, architects, contractors, and so forth, and even with our county planning departments, our city and county planners to ensure that everyone is up to date. It's a couple-year project that we're doing. There's a survey that's out on how that this education, this information can best be disseminated, can best be received, whether it's in person, virtual, whatever, all day, half day, just an hour, however that looks. So if you are from any of these different sectors, private or public, I'd appreciate you just taking a couple minutes to take the survey just to better inform. We're just trying to get this information out to ensure that the housing that we have that is built in this region is up to energy standards, is energy efficient, which is ultimately the best for all affordable homes and residents in our area. It helps ensure that it remains affordable in many ways. Here's the schedule of those upcoming classes that will be coming up that are already being rolled out. They're going to curate their training courses further as they get more feedback about that. I'll place these in the chat also if there's anyone interested in taking these. Next up, this is just a quick highlight. Again, we have our 4 pillars. I'm going to put this in the chat, but I just wanted to put this out there now so you can sign up, opt in. Right now, the collective is going to be updating our monthly pillar meeting calendar invites and the Zoom link. So it's all succinct. It's all linked to the collective Zoom link. And that our contact list is, as many of us have used the calendar invite to invite others and forward it. We actually have lost track of those forwards and all the contacts that want to be a part of it. So we're just updating that contact list. So if you want to be, if you're already existing, I'm just asking that everyone take the survey, opt back into attending these meetings so we can have a current, list of all pillar committee members, and I can ensure that they have a updated calendar invite with an updated Zoom link also. So if you haven't yet already done this, I've been sending this out over almost for a month now. So if you've already done it, it's the same one. I'm just promoting it over the course of this month, so I can ensure everyone is having a chance to opt in or participate in all the committee pillar and the pillar committee meetings. So I'll drop all these links that I just went through in the chat. So if you weren't able to grab them on your phone or something like that, or you will be able to. But for now, we're going to move forward with the presentation with our speakers. So first up, we have, again, Andrew Dawson from California Housing Partnership, who's going to share out about just the legislative update that's happening. Andrew, do you need presenter rights? Or are you
okay? Yes, please. I have just a couple slides.
Okay, awesome.
Oh, let's see. Cool. Good to see everyone again, and good to be talking to you all. Again, I'm Andrew Dawson. I'm with the California Housing Partnership. We are a state-created private nonprofit. Our mission is to increase the supply of affordable and sustainable homes for low-income households. So we do a lot of work in sustainability and finance, and we also do some legislative and regulatory work. So I'm here to talk about some of the legislation that came up this year and what's been notable with this year. Just as an update, I just want to give kind of what does a legislative session look like. So usually around February, bills are introduced either in the Assembly or the Senate. From March through April, we hear the bills in the first house. So if it's introduced in the Senate, we'll start hearing it in the Senate. Once hopefully gets past that, so it gets past the Senate, hopefully in April. In June, we'll be hearing it in the second house. So if it was in the Senate, it'll go to the Assembly. And by the end of June, hopefully it passed the Assembly. And then it'll go back to the first house again. So it starts in the Senate, it'll go to the Assembly, and then go back to the Senate. And then hopefully once that's all over, the governor will sign it or veto it or end up not signing it. And the deadline for that this year was October 15th. So that just happened, and the governor had tons of bills to sign, a lot of them housing. And just in general, we think the housing bills this year were pretty successful. A lot of really big bills were passed this year, and the governor ended up signing them. So we're really lucky for that. There are some cases in terms of homelessness and some of the other issues in terms of budget, the governor either vetoed or did not sign. And I'll get to those a little bit later. So in good news, what are the bills that the governor did sign? These are some of the big ones of this year. Obviously, there are much more. The first one I want to talk about is SB 423 by Senator Wiener. This one will, let's see, there's something in the chat. Let's see. Oh, no, that's just Melanie. No worries. This one was extend the streamlining provisions for SB 35, which you might have heard of a few years ago. This is generally just to allow fast track development of affordable housing. It includes some labor provisions and some market rate provisions as well. SB 4 is, again, another streamlining land use type bill, which allows for affordable housing on religious or higher education institution lands. It's often called the YIGB bill, so Yes in God's Backyard bill. And this has been an effort for the last few years, and luckily we got it through this year. AB 1449 is a broader, just general CEQA exemption for affordable housing. So this includes a lot of things like rezoning of land and for when various environmental labor conditions are met. This is really exciting because in the land use space, there's not really much else we can do. A lot of the legislation the past few years have been about how to basically fast track or streamline building affordable housing. And these three bills are kind of one of the last few ones that we could kind of think of that do that. SB 469, this is a really important bill in that it exempts low-income housing tax credit and HC-funded developments from Article 34. And Article 34 is kind of a racist policy that was in our Constitution that was probably in the 50s or 60s that made it really difficult to build affordable housing when local governments or local people, do not want it, right? They don't want necessarily low-income people moving in. And so it was a generally racist policy that led to the exclusion of Black and brown people from moving into certain neighborhoods. And so we're really happy that this has now been kind of curtailed in some ways when it exempts affordable housing from being built. AB 84 is a welfare exemption for 501c3 bonds and for increases in tenant income. So for the developers out there, this will be really helpful. Again, it's a little bit wonky, a little bit in the weeds, but it's important for a lot of developers. And in the tenants' rights space, a lot of people are really excited about SB 567 by Senator Durazo, which ends up closing loopholes in just cause eviction law for owner move-ins. You might have heard of things like the Ellis Act and things like that. This closes some of those loopholes, so really excited for tenant protections to be kind of in the mix. And that was a really big effort from our tenant protections community and tenant community to really push this through the finish line. On bills that did not get signed or were vetoed, some of the important ones or some of the ones we were kind of hoping for was SB 18. So this is a tribal housing program built by and for tribes. This was vetoed by the governor. In the veto message, the governor expressed that perhaps this will be kind of mentioned in the January budget. Part of the issue was vetoed is there wasn't any money for it. And so the idea is in the January budget, hopefully the governor comes back and kind of puts money into this program or is able to money in this program. For a similar reason, AB 1085 was also vetoed. This was also kind of a budget reasoning. We don't have the money for it type of thing. This was to expand Medi-Cal benefits for housing under CalAIM specifically. So you could have more housing support services through Medi-Cal. AB 1053 is kind of another wonky policy developer bill. Which would reduce affordable housing costs by funding loans during the construction period versus once the building is actually built. This has ended up being held by the author due to the administration hopefully agreeing to work on this issue. One of the big ones this year was AB 1657. This is a $10 billion bond for affordable housing. We are starting to recognize in terms of land use space that we've done quite a bit to streamline and make affordable housing be able to be built. The other big thing is a finance side, right? So we need to be able to finance and actually build the affordable housing. So this bill was to hopefully do that. This hasn't necessarily gone through everything yet. Part of the reason is the governor has their own bill on housing and homelessness, on homelessness specifically. And there are a bunch of other bonds in the play. There's an education bond, there's a few climate bonds and things like that. And so that's more of a political game to see which bonds actually make it to the ballot and which ones don't. And we're really hoping for this one to be there. SB 225 will create a program for acquiring naturally occurring affordable housing, so non-deed restricted affordable housing, and getting it under a deed restriction. This is similar to SB 18, where we just didn't get the budget for the program. And so there's no reason to make the program if it doesn't have a budget for it. And the last thing I want to talk about is ACA 1. So this one did pass and is good to go. This lowers the VERT threshold to 55% instead of 2/3 for local government tax approval for affordable housing, among other infrastructure improvements. This will be on the ballot and will be voted on. There are some maybe minor things happening on the sides to make sure voters would agree to it and voters can vote for it in terms of polling. But we're really excited for this, and this is going to be a campaign starting next year on getting people to vote for ACA 1, because we know the ballot is a really powerful force, but education is super important to get anything passed in the ballot. So I went through a lot of that and all of that. I also know home ownership has been an important topic for this group. So I just want to ensure that I talk about CalHome and California Dream for All, which did get funding this year for home ownership opportunities. So I know that's something that's important to this group specifically. Other than that, happy to answer any questions or ask about anything legislative or regulatory. And I will send these slides out to you, Melanie, so you can send it out and people could look at it more deeply, because I did go through it pretty quickly.
Andrew, I have a question. So is there any of the bills do you see like in terms of being implemented and rolled out? What are, your thoughts on terms on like the timetable for that and that, and is there some advocacy opportunity for the collective to play in that California Housing Partnership plays or maybe has access to also?
Yeah, I would say so. All the bills that got signed will be law starting January 1st of this year. So that's really exciting for a lot of this stuff. I think one of the big things the partnership is ramping up and going to work on next year is the bond. So AB 1657 to make sure we have financing available for building housing. And the other thing is ACA 1 and making sure people are educated about the issue and will hopefully vote yes, so that we can lower the voter threshold. And those are the two big campaign type things that we are working on that, if y'all want to plug in, would be really helpful.
Yeah, and similarly, the collective has already agreed to support and support in terms of the campaign of ACA 1. I'm doing some education series around that. And we've been a part of kind of just the networking and building capacity this past year around that also. So, yeah, the collective itself has already committed, and the pillar has already approved. The Educate and Advocate for Public Policy pillar has already approved the support, participation, and education around ACA 1 for this coming year.
That's awesome. We really appreciate it. The other thing is right now we're looking at kind of what our bill package will be for next year. So the partnership does sponsor a number of bills. We got 9 of our bills signed this year, which is really exciting. And so then, if you all have ideas on terms of bills and kind of issues in your region, definitely let us know or let SCAMFA know, and we can try to figure out a solution, whether that be regulatory or legislative, and see where that can go.
I have another question, but I don't want to jump on if someone else does. So in terms of CalHome, as you know, CalHome is important to our region, and we leverage those money in various ways and disseminate it out well, right? We know that it got funded again. What do you think the likelihood of this coming year, as we kind of start thinking and brainstorming for this new legislative session and the budget, in January, like, do you think, based off what we see, or we see the deficit that's going to happen, do you think this is another advocacy opportunity for us to start rallying behind in January, or, just based off of what you hear in Sacramento and,
Yeah, I think in terms of our budget asks for next year, they're going to include CalHome, definitely. Whether or not that gets agreed to is another thing. I would say the legislature really likes kind of home ownership opportunities. So CalHome is something that's pretty popular within legislators because it's a wealth building mechanism for a lot of low income people. So yeah, and I think advocacy around that will be important in the coming year, especially for housing. And just like I was saying before, the financing is starting to become the issue with housing, not as much the actual streamlining efforts. And so then the big push for next year is trying to figure out ways we can finance and bills we can use to make financing of affordable housing or just homeownership opportunities a lot easier. And I think the bond, if I'm not mistaken, might have some Cal Home as well. But I have to double check that.
All right, any more questions? Okay. Well, thank you, Andrew, again for jumping on. I think we've leveraged your partnership a couple times this year to provide us
Yeah.
some updates. And so we truly appreciate it, and the work you guys do at PHP. So thank you again. And we look forward to connecting and continuing the work in our Educate and Advocate for public policy. So Andrew is is a frequent committee member, participates in that too. So I encourage you all, if you have an interest in pushing moving forward legislation or implementation of any regulatory items to join the pillar, join the work that we're doing there in the collective. Damien?
Yeah, just to put an exclamation mark on the education piece around ACA1, whatever it is, on the 50% threshold. That's going to be a heavy lift. So it's going to be much larger than what the Education and Advocacy Committee can do alone. So whether or not you're on that committee or not, one, join the committee if you have any interest in making affordable housing easier to get passed in our communities. Two, even if you're not on the committee, please help us get the word out around what this means and what it can do.
Yeah, and always thanks for having me here. Always happy to be here to talk to people who do the work and are in communities that are often overlooked.
Awesome. Well, thank you. So we had our awesome policy update, and now we're going to transition. We have our second presenter here. You should have presenter rights. It should be good, Jeff. So like I mentioned before in the beginning of the meeting, we have Inland Equity Community Land Trust, who's here, sorry, and who will be presenting a little bit on the CLT, what they do, and their current project. So again, the collective has been working this past 6 months or so, maybe a little bit more, on highlighting creative resources, tools, projects, and even policies that have been used and leveraged in local cities or in sub-regions to accelerate the production of affordable housing, right? So this is just another asset that the region has, and who's really leading the efforts in our community land trust in the area also, right? So please welcome Jeff Green, who's going to present to us.
Hello, and thanks for inviting me to speak. I'm going to share my screen here. Share screen. Okay, here we go. Okay, can you see 1969 New Communities, Inc.?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Okay, never mind.
Not now.
Yeah, I couldn't hear anybody, so I got panicked. I put this up here because I wanted to start a little bit with the history of community land trusts. One of the very first ones, the very first one in the United States was called New Communities, and these are the people that initially started it. And so you have Slater King, who's cousin of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and was the leader of the Albany movement and the civil rights movement. Bob Swan, who was an anti-war Quaker, anti-war protester and activist from the 1940s on. Then you have Charles Sherrod there. He's right there, part of the Mississippi Freedom Summer, registering African Americans in Mississippi to vote for an alternative Democratic Party. Faye Bennett, who is a nonprofit leader who worked in buying sharecropper debt and then moving sharecroppers out of the cycle of Jim Crow style slavery. Then Father Albert McKnight, who is African American priest in St. Louis, Missouri, during the 1940s, 50s, and 60s. And they are the initial people who founded community land trusts that bought land and then put housing on it, and people lived there. And that was called New Communities. These are the people that inspired us. We had been working as an organization called California Partnership, and we did state budget policy advocacy. And we were working on a program in the teens called Housing and Disability Advocacy, which was a state policy that allocated funds to counties to identify people that were homeless that were qualified for Social Security benefits, to get them those benefits so that they would no longer be homeless. And the way they allocated those funds, it required counties to do a lot of reporting, and you could use that reporting to do a lot of advocacy for homelessness and housing in general. And so we tied ourselves to that program as part of a campaign called the Californians for SSI campaign. And at that same time, in the teens, housing prices rents were skyrocketing. That's when it sort of started. And so people that were on SSI were getting $980 a month, and then their rents went over, to $1,000 a month, right? And so that pushed people that were on SSI into homelessness. And so we had this whole cycle of more and more people on SSI going into homelessness. And then we had a partner at that time in Catholic Charities. We still partner with Catholic Charities on a great deal of our work, but Beverly Earl was our, one of our partners, and she said that if we were going to ever be able to, get a handle on this, then we have to just start building houses for poor people. And so we started in exploring ways to do that, and eventually, we founded the Inland Equity Community Land Trust and transitioned California Partnership into the Inland Equity Community Land Trust in 2020. Since that time, a person who liked our work offered us 20 acres of land in Adelanto at a ridiculously low price. So we bought it. And the way it's zoned, we're going to be able to put 4 houses on it right now. And then after a few years, we'll be hopefully able to do the SB9 lot split and put 4 more. So our goal is to put 8 houses on this property and not change the zoning. The property itself is located in Adelanto, and it's on county land. You can see on here, that little sort of area is completely surrounded by the city of Adelanto. And it's that's Adelanto High School, and the property itself is down the road, Mojave Drive, from there. And so we own that property, and we have raised about $1 million. The whole project's going to cost about $1.5 million, and we're going to start. We're going to place. I know that Rashana is on this call, and we're going to be using some of the manufactured homes provided by NPHS so we're going to be preparing the pads beginning next year, and they'll deliver those homes. They're like the ones, if you've seen them, I'm sure you heard about them in San Bernardino, where you just prepare the pads. They're manufactured home, but they're not on an axle or anything. They're just a regular house. And so the way with new legislation that also passed, AB 671, it makes it a lot easier and clarifies for community land trusts. So we can build a house and 3 ADUs on this property as it's zoned right now. And so AB 671 makes it possible for a community land trust to sell each one of them individually. And so the person buys the house, uh, the land trust owns the land, and then they enter into an equity sharing agreement. So part of what we're doing is all of the money that we get and we raise as part of the subsidy for the house is going to be locked into the walls of the house as subsidy retention, so that we can demonstrate to housing authorities and other agencies that do housing that a good way to build community wealth is to do subsidy retention instead of doing, say, Section 8, which pays landlord in, you know, a voucher, and then the landlord takes that money to and spends it in Orange County or Dubai or wherever the landlord lives. You can lock that subsidy into the walls of the house and create homeownership. So when the person buys the house, they enter into that subsidy agreement, and then when they sell the house, what they pay in and build in equity, they keep and take. But what the subsidy that initially went in is going to be locked into the walls of the house and passed on to the next buyer. So it stays permanently below market rate. And that's our goal. And that's what we want to demonstrate with this project. We didn't necessarily want to do it out in the middle of the desert, um, but that was the land that was offered to us and we took it. And our goal in the future is to do much more infill type building, do acquisition and rehab, acquire a property, add an ADU, and you know, do that in areas that are much more built out. And so that's kind of where we're at with Plan Adelanto. As a nonprofit, you know, we've been out there. The property itself has been used for some illegal dumping. A lot of it happens out there on the county land, and so this was a lot of our volunteers and stuff that went out, and we picked up a lot of trash. I don't know. Let me see if I can find. So this was the dumpster we rented, almost filled up at the end of the day, and that's my fat butt right there. Um, but that's some of the trash that was dumped. And I think what's happening out there is people are getting evicted, and then they're cleaning out people's apartments, and then they're too cheap to take it to a dump, so they dump it in the county somewhere. We have you know, let me see if I can find a nice pretty shot. That, I mean, this is what it looks like. It's you know, the property itself is not quite under those wires, but it's a beautiful view. And so our hope is eventually the interest rates have kind of skyrocketed since we started this project. And so, you know, initially, and you know, there hasn't been any change to this, but our goal is to sell them. There'll be 3 bedroom homes, and our goal is to sell them for $250,000, which is well below market rate. And um, and begin that process. And we hope to be completed with it by next summer. Have the pads prepared and get the houses delivered by next summer. So that's where we're at with Plan Adelanto. Some of the other work that we do is we organize tenants unions. So um, we're very involved in housing policy and justice in general. And so we have these 4 tenant unions going. There's others, like there's one in Fontana that's not on here because they don't really meet um, at a regular time yet or anything like that. And so uh, there we go over a book. It's called California Tenants' Rights, which is you know, it's available from NOLO, and it's updated with changing tenant laws, and we educate ourselves and other tenants on how to assert their rights. So one of the things we found that's going on right now that's very common are the which uh, is the evictions for remodeling. So landlords are claiming to be doing remodeling, doing evictions so that they can get old tenants out, raise the rent up to market rate instead of following the horrible Costa Hawkins is bad, but they want even more because the market rate is shot up past even what Costa Hawkins allows them to raise the rent. So if they can evict people for major remodeling, they do. And so we have worked with several tenants to help them file answers to evictions. 3 out of 3 so far we've won. And so we're getting a lot of traction there. And so we're also advocating that trying to get funding for attorneys to actually help people with evictions, because like Inland County's legal services, other agencies, they'll help with some issues, mainly habitability issues, but not a lot with the eviction process. And so we're hoping to get funds that will help fund answers to evictions. Our board raised some money to do that, and we've been paying for a few what it's called legal prep masters, and they prepare answers to evictions. And like I said, we're 3 out of 3 for all the ones that have gone to that point. And what's happening is the state's relying on people having the money to hire an attorney to assert their rights. And generally people don't even know they have those rights, and they just leave when they get the pay or quit notice or the quit notice for a renovation, and they just leave and they don't even try to fight. And so one of the big challenges is just to get people to face an eviction taped to their door and then answer it and go through that process, because it's pretty scary. And so that's one of the things that we're trying to do as well. And then the other thing we do is we encourage people to build ADUs um, as a way to build more housing stock in areas, so that's another one of the projects that we work on. And let me see where else. I don't know what my time left is, but I think I'm rambling now, and so I'm going to go ahead and just stop and ask for questions.
Ayako has a question.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Hey, Jeff.
Hey,
Ayako.
how are you?
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Great to see you. Great presentation. Very exciting. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about, because this new ADU law that allows the owner to sell just the ADU in a condominium type of format, you also have to form an HOA. Can you tell us about how you're doing that? Because a formal HOA is quite expensive, and the compliance and the laws are constantly changing. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you're handling that?
So at the current state of us is we're relying heavily on the California Community Land Trust Network. We're members, and so uh, generally we're just leaning to them and their expertise, and
Okay.
that I think ultimately we're going to apply for grants.
Okay.
Everything we do pretty much is relying on either grants or fundraising, because we're a nonprofit. And so um, that part of it would be built in to the structure and the pricing. Everything like winds up, ultimately, if it's not the nonprofit paying for it, then it's going to be the homeowner paying for it. And so the more we can do to keep that price low, uh, the better it is. And that's all dependent on either raising money either from the state or raising money from philanthropy or, having fundraisers and getting bands to play music.
Okay, well, that's great. You've got the force of the CLT organization behind you, but for anyone who's on the call that might be considering this, I do want to caution that starting an HOA, like a real homeowners association in the state of California, is fraught with many issues. So please do research that before you embark on something like this.
There's a lot of many things, many like legal technical barriers to everything we do, especially
Yes,
in
yes, right.
housing.
Why is that?
Because people want it to be complicated so that housing stays expensive.
Right.
It used to be, I mean, go to Mexico and I see, people that are getting an average income of $5,000 a year living in a house, and that house would generate about $5,000 a month in rent if it was 2 miles north of where it is. So, I have my own sort of ideological drive of why it is and what it is that causes our society to force people to be homeless, even though they, you know, are poor, and other societies that don't do that. And I think that we should look to those other societies that are successfully housing poor people for our inspiration.
Yes, a lot of truth in that. Thanks, Jeff. But that looks great.
Thank you.
Oh, and did you go with the MH Advantage home? With the manufactured home with the special sauce, or are you using a different housing type?
For no, it is for the foundation.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's MH Advantage
Well, so
or
Luke,
Freddie's Choice Home.
it's the footing type, or are you talking about like the loan?
Is it a manufactured home?
Yes,
Okay.
it's the one like so.
Oh,
Rashana
Rashana's
is
on.
here
Yeah,
on the
there we
call.
Rashana's
go.
on.
Yeah.
Um, yes, these are MH Advantage homes. So they will qualify for FHA, VA, or conventional financing for the resale. Yes, so that is it for your question.
Okay, but they'll be income restricted, right, Jeff?
Yes, they're going to be, all the residents will come from the housing authority of
Okay.
the
Yeah.
county of San Bernardino, and they have a home ownership program that they're doing. And so that's,
Okay, so I'm not sure that FHA VA loans are allowed with income restriction, deed restricted CCNRs. So that we just may need to check on that.
my,
Okay, great. Thank you. Sounds amazing.
thank you.
Fabian, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, you might want to look into that because there are restrictions with VA and FHA. Even with some lenders, they won't even allow some of that on there. So depending on the projects, it's sometimes project specific. So depending on the CCNRs. So to go to your point, you are correct. There, it is limited with VA and FHA based on the CCNRs. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I'm sorry. Alrighty.
Awesome. Well, I mean, as it's evident that, having a CLT, and just the uniqueness of it, and I guess the also restrictions around it too, right? The difficulty it is to have it, which is evident in just kind of the challenges and that you've gone through, Jeff, or that the different things that you're preparing and how a CLT looks different than just like an average, like here's a lot, build a home and go for it, right?
Mhm.
So, you know, it's the one thing, and I know Damien made a note on it in the chat too. You know, CLTs are becoming more and more. I mean, they've been around for a while. I had years back in my master's had worked with a neighborhoods organization in St. Louis that had a CLT, and that was in the Midwest. Like that CLTs were very common. That's how they used to build affordable housing. And
Mhm.
way back to California, there was none in the region at the time, at least in the IE. And so it's great to see that this tool is being leveraged, especially now when it's even harder to build affordable housing and for things to remain affordable. So, you know, I applaud, you know, Inland Equity Community Land Trust and you, Jeff, for kind of trudging through this. And I'm glad, you know, you have the support of the CLT. So, you know, I look forward to seeing how things pan out as they progress, and just for us to kind of learn from you, right, of doing this in the region and how maybe this can be replicated in other areas of our region, right, to increase the
Yeah.
production of affordable housing through a CLT model. Damien?
Yeah, again, thanks, Jeff, for your presentation and all that work. It's great. And to your point, and your earlier point, Jeff, and also to the point that you just made, Melanie, in terms of why we don't see a lot of it out here. I don't know all the exact reasons, but I know that from speaking with some local city leadership that has very little interest in pursuing and supporting work around CLTs, it has a lot to do with economic development approaches, and the fact that economic development has largely based around tax revenue and not supporting people and having higher quality of life. So in terms of its value for home ownership, it's not even on their radar. They're looking at what can bring in more tax revenue, and so that's something that I think that we can educate and advocate around our elected leadership on to shift cities' economic development approaches.
Yeah.
Great point. Yeah. All right. Well, if there isn't any further questions, thank you, Jeff, again for coming on and sharing with us about the Adelanto, Plan Adelanto, and the project, and what you're pushing forward for inland equity. So we're going to move forward now with our next piece, which is around our pillar and committee update. Now and just general collective announcement. So we can jump into I tried not to take in our announcements, take too much time, take too much of that away from the pillar updates too. So, but I figured we can quickly go through them, providing more further updates as it has approached the end of the year. Things have kind of slowed down in our pillar committees a bit. But if there's any updates, we can make those now. Let's see here. So, Ayako, do you have any updates from the expansion of the housing solution pillar that you'd like to make?
Sure. Thanks, Melanie. Ayako Utsumi here. I head up the expansion of housing solutions pillar. That's EHS. We meet on the second Thursday of every month from 9 to 9:45. Second Thursday, 9 to 9:45 a.m. We're focused on increasing housing for homeless and also expanding home ownership opportunities in the IE. So if you'd like to join our pillar, please put this in the chat or reach out to Melanie and we'll get connected. So lately, as Melanie mentioned earlier, our pillar has been focusing on community-wide education for the state's up to $80,000 per household mortgage housing assistance for any mortgage holder where they're at risk. So if it's related to, if your issues happen related to your mortgage happen during the term of COVID, you may be entitled to up to $80,000. And that includes property taxes in arrears, even homeowners insurance payments and some other things. But like any government program, it's complicated. So it's very important that you reach out to an approved HUD counseling agency to help your potentially underwater mortgage holder get the right information and avoid scammers and misinformation. So Melanie put in the chat earlier the California Mortgage Relief and Foreclosure Prevention Workshop. So NPHS is having their second one. So thank you, NPH, for stepping up to do that. You can invite people to attend. And I bet you everyone on this call knows somebody who is appropriately, you know, moderate income or below, who may be struggling with some kind of housing related mortgage payment, especially those who are older, elderly, and in a reverse mortgage. Reverse mortgage holders are also eligible for assistance. And we know with homeowners insurance prices skyrocketing, some fixed income seniors may not be able to afford homeowners insurance, which then puts their reverse mortgage at risk. You know, things like this. So we want to make sure the right information is getting out to our vulnerable mortgage holders. So please do look at this link that's in the chat. And Melanie, did we also post the poster? I don't remember. Melanie,
The
would we
general
be
flyer,
able to,
the general
yeah, the
flyer?
general flyer, if we could put that
Yeah,
link there, and then if you, the general one, and then everyone on this call, please do email this link out to your respective email chains, because somebody out there could benefit from this, and we want to get the word out. And we understand that the program is still undersubscribed because the state has changed the rules at least twice now. And so people may not realize that they didn't qualify 9 months ago, and now they do. So please do get this word out. It's very important that we help our homeowners to stay stably housed. There is help for them. So thank you to all the organizations. So we have melindacredit.org and NHSIE. You had your outreach on September 30. Melanie, when is credit.org doing theirs? I don't recall.
So credit.org is, if you're thinking of Fair Housing Council of Riverside.
Fair Housing. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
so they haven't confirmed a date with me, but we're looking at the beginning of November. So yeah, great. So Hugh is coordinating that on their end when they have availability in their space for that. But there is there will be one out also in the Coachella Valley. Lift to Rise is going to leverage their space to host that also, and they're still firming up a date based on their space available.
Yeah, thank you. So,
and then credit.org is going to support, and if there's any counseling that we need, sending counselors to those locations if we.
That's right. Thank you, Mel. Thanks for clarifying that. And also, we also would like to do more outreach to community centers and community senior centers. So if anyone on the call, you have specific connections to a local senior center where we could get out this information, particularly for those reverse mortgage holders, we'd like to do more outreach. So if anyone has a good connection to a community center or a community senior center, please do reach out to us, put it in the chat, or go ahead and reach out to Melanie so that we may continue to educate our community on the available of this amazing up to $80,000 per household assistance. So please do avail yourself of that. Next, I would like to, one thing I wanted to say, NPHS, when they did their first one, was that early September? Oh, no, it was August. They actually got someone qualified. So it is working. When you give people an opportunity to meet face-to-face for a confidential, no-risk conversation, people will come forward, and you need to have a HUD counselor, a HUD-approved counselor to help you through this very confusing process. So again, we hope you'll be able to do that. Next, we're trying to work on addressing homelessness in our area, the IE. And one project I'm working on is with the State of California Department of Aging to bring about a policy brief on preventing and ending older adult homelessness. And we know the older adults, and we'll just define them as 50 or 55 plus for now, they're the fastest growing age segment of the homeless population. And again, it's reverse mortgage holders who one spouse dies and the surviving spouse for various reasons isn't able to, make all the necessary arrangements and they lose their house, or two SSI incomes on rent and one spouse dies. Now the surviving spouse only has one income. They can't pay rent now. So, and we know rents are escalating in the IE to really very high prices. I know median rent in Riverside County is $2,200 for a 2-bedroom, I understand. So this is out of reach for many of our vulnerable families. So again, this policy brief is a very important way to speak to our legislators on what they need to do to help us keep older adults housed. So a little bit more on that will be coming later. And several months ago now, I had mentioned that the Volunteers of America Los Angeles had about several hundred recreational vehicle RV trailers, not the vehicle, the trailer. And it turns out that because of the utility connection issue, it becomes prohibitively expensive. We looked at one RV trailer project in Highland, and they have just, I think, I want to say 19 trailers, but their annual operating budget is several million because of the utilities and the security. So then it just turns out to be not as cost effective as one might think. So in the end, Volunteers of America did cut a deal with the city of a church in the city of Fontana. That was a Water of Life church. They will be selling very substantially below market to Water of Life Community Church. So they are getting 19, I believe. But other than that, they decided to not continue offering these RVs. Now, if you are a nonprofit and you have an amazing plan on how to use an RV trailer for homeless housing, which includes a plan for utilities, bathroom, kitchen, 24-hour security, property management, electricity, sewage, the whole thing. If you can present something, they might be willing to entertain it, but it's a very high bar for your average nonprofit that has a little extra parking lot. So that doesn't look like it's going to work for what I originally thought it was. So they will end up just selling them on the market and using the proceeds to fund homeless housing in Los Angeles. So that's an update on that RV project. And I'm sorry it didn't quite work out as we had originally planned, but Water of Life Church did get 19 units, or almost is getting them. They'll be delivered at the top of next year. And then my last thing is, part of one of our goals is to better connect with our transit authorities in the IE. As we know, the affordable housing funding sources out there want to make sure that where affordable housing is built, that there is adequate mass transportation, because our vulnerable households, not everyone has a car. So public transportation, especially the bus, is very important. But we know in the IE, we don't have the public mass transportation options that there are in, say, LA County. So then we don't qualify for as much affordable housing funding. So what can we do to advocate to RTA Riverside Transit Agency or Authority, San Bernardino's Omnitrans, and there are a number of other bus agencies? What can we do to lobby them to expand bus service in specific areas where there is city or county owned vacant land that is suitable for affordable housing development, could they increase bus service to those areas? Because it's chicken and egg, right? The bus transit agencies don't want to increase the bus service if the housing's not there, and the housing doesn't want to build it unless the transportation is there. So it's a little chicken and egg, but is there something we can do to advocate for better, higher quality bus service? Then we could potentially qualify for more affordable housing dollars to come to the IE. So that's the other thing that we're working on. I think that does it for me. Questions? Thank you very much. Oh, I'm sorry. One last thing. So just as a side note, Mary Erickson Community Housing, nonprofit developer, is building new construction, 7 detached single-family homes in northwestern Riverside. We're not Riverside County. We're not allowed to reveal the exact location for certain reasons, but these homes should come online in about 1.25 years. So the end of 2024, they will be sold to first-time home buyers, 80% AMI, 80% AMI, with a preference for US veterans. So those of you on the call who do HUD home counseling, or if any of you know low-income veterans, please get them connected to Fabian Casares on the phone, Melinda Upperman on the phone, if Rashana Faye is still on the line, and let's see who from NHSIE is on. I think I saw somebody. Anyway, please do contact your approved HUD home counseling agency to see if this low income family could get mortgage ready to buy a new home that will be affordable to 80% AMI household late next year. And we'll be sharing more information as we go along. Thank you.
So I could do like a quick policy, and then I'll do for the educate and advocate for public policy pillar. So our for this pillar, we meet on the first Tuesday of the month at 10. And so this year so far, currently as the legislative session has ended, we are working towards planning for next year, starting to track new legislation that we'll see dropping in January, maybe December, but start tracking that and finding ways to help. Again, like what I had said before when Andrew was presenting on ACA 1, the Inland SoCal Housing Collective Educate and Advocate pillar has been working alongside a voter threshold campaign, which has aligned with ACA 1. And so now we're moving forward with creating, because we're a 501c3, our role in this is we're going to work on creating some education around this on affordable housing and sharing a narrative around this, right? Because what this is going to do, ultimately will go to ballot, right? Will need to be voted on. So there's a lot of education that's going to need to happen around this. And so this coming year, probably in the end of November, beginning of December, I may be working or reaching out along with maybe some of our interns, reaching out to you all and seeing if there's a family or story, seeing if we can capture some of this affordable housing narrative and storytelling to pull down and to share with the greater, with the region, right? Within the region, to different subsets, to different groups. Because this bond will, and I'm not sure how well versed everyone is on this, but basically it's going to allow, as Andrew had said before, the 2/3, instead of a 2/3 approval, we'll move it down to 55. So still majority, but just a smaller portion of those who are against it can't totally stop it, right? So we're going to rally behind us, going to create some education material. So if in the next couple of months you see or you hear me or I'm sending an email and you're like, what is she doing? What I'm doing is trying to pull down these stories and capture it so we can start sharing, creating this greater strategy across the region of what affordable housing looks like and how it impacts our communities and the success behind it. So that's one thing we'll be doing. The pillar will be working on that work, as well as just our general policy tracking, advocating, and also promoting, supporting those local projects in our region that need letters of support. Again, this past year, we were able to create a template matrix that we've used to help determine if we're going to support policy or not support policy. And we will continue this coming year to use that as a way for us to identify what policies align with the promotion and with the align with, the Inland Empire and the acceleration of affordable housing that we're seeking, that we're looking for, or the preservation too. So all things housing. And that's all I have for the policy committee. Again, earlier I posted a link if you'd like to opt in or re-opt into this. We're updating the contact list and the calendar invites for all the pillar meetings. So this will be done at the beginning of November. So in just 2 weeks, you'll see a new calendar invite come in. So don't be alarmed. It's the updated one. So I'm just giving people an opportunity to get in and to make sure I have current and updated information from everyone at these committee meetings. So next, I'm going to Melinda. Are you okay sharing out for the wealth building? Okay.
Sure.
And I could add
Sure.
to it too.
Oh, good. Love to have you add to it. All right. So on the wealth building and preservation pillar, we meet the second Wednesday of every month, 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock. We would encourage you to join one of our meetings if you already aren't in the loop with those meetings. Two things I'll put a spotlight on. The first is our Inland SoCal Bank On Coalition, which is for safe and low cost, no cost deposit accounts. So thanks to Melanie Steele's leadership, we were awarded a Bank On grant, which funds a fellow position. And that employee position is going to be a member of what's called the Bank On Fellowship Cohort. And we will be working collaboratively in leadership with other bank on coalitions, so to speak, and it'll help make advancements for local banking access efforts that we have underway. And then that fellow will be responsible for directing and realizing the vision of our Bank on Inland SoCal program we have here, and overseeing day-to-day operations and coordinating with the CFE fund. And it's a 2-year commitment. So there was a job opportunity that was placed, and Mel can go into more detail on that. And then the second thing I wanted to touch on as I wrap up is our Inland Empire Saves campaign. We'll be having our America Saves Week initiative. Typically, for those that recall, it's normally in February of every year. So it's going to be moved this year nationally to April. So it coincides with Financial Literacy Empowerment Month. And for those who weren't aware, our Inland Empire Saves campaign was a result of all of us coming together at a Fed, FDIC, OCC convening, kind of as the housing crisis, so to speak, Great Recession was kind of wrapping up. And so we've continued to meet, and we would like to have you as part of our pillar and help with those two initiatives. Microphone back to you, Mel.
Perfect. I was going to mention all of those and just say we're interviewing candidates right now. So next meeting, we will be able to present our new Bank On fellow coalition lead. So we will be finishing that up soon. And so the collective will be hiring their second staff person ever, which is great. And let me see here. And I think that's all I have for my notes for that. In regards to our increasing regional involvement pillar, I don't know, David, if you have, I could provide some updates on just like the Great Housing Convening, or if you have any updates too.
Yeah, if you could do that, please. But the one thing that I would like to share for increasing regional involvement is we're thinking out of the box, and we talked to people about being involved with the Inland SoCal Housing Collective. And for example, I had a conversation just recently with an individual. She's a banker, but we have participation from a lot of banks on this already. But those are typically the bankers who are involved with community engagement or community responsibility. And this is an individual who is in the commercial banking area, works specifically with the medical field and with doctors and medical professionals, and how that ties in with housing. And she was very intrigued by what she can do and speak with her clients and her customer base. So when you're thinking about that, don't think about, okay, yeah, we already have banks represented on here, because there could be somebody who has a specialty and has access to an industry that could benefit from being engaged with this program. So Melanie, go ahead with the rest of your update.
Thank you. And so this pillar is also does just like 2 biannual meetings of our housing or local collective impact models, and just kind of having a space for regional housing initiatives to collaborate, to share best practices, to share pain points, to share successes. And so we're organizing that second one now. So if there is any collectives or local collective impact, so partnerships between yourself and someone else in terms of like, how do you build or preserve housing in an area, a collective model in different regions, please reach out to me. I want to make sure that we're including all those collective impact models to this little small convening for this sharing space, right? And collaborative space. So,
I think Ayako had something else that she wanted to say.
Yes.
I'm sorry, this question was for Melinda. So finish your section and I'll go back to Melinda.
I'm good. That's it. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Oh, so this question is for Melinda and Melanie. There are some nonprofits in Moreno Valley that are interested in getting banking education for the unbanked out in Moreno Valley. What would you suggest as a resource for them? These are homeless people, basically, or
Yes.
or precariously housed.
Yes, we can help with that.
Okay.
Yeah, yes, we can go on site to do workshops or Zoom or whatever is convenient for the participants.
Okay.
And yes, we have outreach. We just did a big outreach with the courthouse in Riverside with their CASA and their STAR program. The S is for substance abuse recovery. Probation refers them to the program. And so we went and did the class, and we had 5 of the people from the class start deposit accounts, bank on deposit accounts. So we can help there.
Nice. And do you charge?
No.
Oh, even better. Okay, great. We'll connect later. Thank you. That's a great resource for anyone else on the phone. You can bring this kind of education to your area. Thank you. That's great.
Awesome. So I just want to make note. I know that there was some a couple things in the newsletter that went out on Tuesday. I wanted to make sure everyone had gotten that. Sometimes that newsletter, I don't know how it happens, it gets into your spam folder or to your others folder. So I just wanted to make note. So if you guys look back on the 17th, the newsletter was sent out, and it has a lot of great information about like including items that we've talked about here. And in addition, some of the upcoming conferences that are housing related, either locally or in the surrounding area. Just to mention the Casita Coalition Middle ADU, the Middle Housing, ADU housing that's going to be in San Diego. It's coming up soon. This is a great one. I know Damien's attending it. It's one I wish I could attend, but it's conflicting with our Bank On conference. And so, but SCAMP is also coming up. They've had a slight change in the date and location of it. So that update is included in the newsletter also. And there's another webinar also that's for the region from Um, oh man, I've seen so many. There's another one that I wanted to include that I can't recall at this exact moment. But please stay tuned. Please look for that information in the newsletters and make sure that you guys are getting it. If you haven't gotten it, drop your email in here and please, tell me I could add you. Or you could go onto our website and we have a tab that says join newsletter there. It's quite easy to get connected to that. And lastly, at the California Forward Economic Summit, we had a group of housing professionals from the collective were able to talk and we were able to meet with the governor's office. And one of the questions that were asked, because it was featured in the IE, right? One of the questions we got asked was, in the IE, what are some pain points? Give me 3 pain points, right? And give me that we can go back, right, and work on, whether it's funds, like not being able to leverage state or federal funds in the way you can to accelerate that. And 3 ways that we can pain points and 3 ways that that investment can be utilized in this region also. So this is a conversation that the collective isn't necessarily hosting only, but we're hosting with housing in the area, with the community foundation and so forth. This is a conversation we want to carry and continue to keep that partnership with the governor's office, right? And share that as a way to better amplify the work that's being done here in the IE and being able to identify, practical ways that things can be, the needle can be moved. So be thinking of that as we move forward. I mean, that just happened last week. So, we're going to start talking about that. I think, we have a good punch and some ideas, but I think we want to make sure that it's representative of the region, right? And that it's being inclusive of what, what if we have 3, what are those 3, what are we going to recommend, right? Of what are some actual ways that we can impact in the needle can be moved. So please look for that, and we'll be having those conversations moving forward, and a lot of that will be housed also within our pillar committee. So please join our pillar committees so we can make sure that your thoughts, your voice is being included and heard in a lot of this work, and how the strategies are built out in the collective, right? It's all built out by the members. So if there is not anything else, I'd love to just open the space for general announcements, or you guys can all get a couple minutes back, 7 minutes back, to transition to the next thing. But thank you guys all, and I'll be on, and if you have general announcements, please go ahead.
We have our November 9th, our annual membership meeting at the UU Church in downtown Riverside. If you're interested, you could hit me up and I can get you an exclusive seat.
Awesome. Nice. What date is that again?
November 9th. It'll be at 5:30 at the UU Church, downtown Riverside, right next to the Cheech Museum.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining. If there's nothing else, take care. I'll stay on if anyone has any.
Oh, wait, well, NHSIE has an event tomorrow, and then NPHS has their annual event on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
So hope to see you all there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. October's a busy month for events, galas, conferences. So yeah.
Woo! Yes.
Tomorrow's NHSAE, Fridays NPHS. So it's just, all and on the same street, Jeff, right down the street from each other. One's at the Cheech and one's at Mission Inn. So
yeah,
must be the hot place this year.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.